Alright, recap. I'm Rachel. I'm a second-year health science student at Russia, and I joined Power Change a couple of months ago. And a few weeks ago, I was actually having a conversation with one of my small group leaders, or PGLs as we call them, and she was talking to me about testimonies, and she was saying how cool it was that when you want to know the awesome things that God has done, the first place you typically turn to is those negative things that have happened in your life and how God has worked them out for good. And that's the kind of story I want to tell you tonight. It is totally not mine. I'm so blessed that God has taken me on this journey, despite how awful it seemed when it was going on. So, a little bit of background on me. I grew up in a Christian home, in a Christian family, and some of you guys can really relate to that tonight. I also had the really awesome opportunity to go to Christian school for my first 10 years of school. And while Christian school is an awesome blessing, there are also inherent limitations to that. And I think you might all be best able to understand that if I put it this way. We've all walked into an exam, you have memorized that textbook, and you get in, and it's just completely off of the entire exam application questions. And cheesy as this sounds, life is just one big application exam. And sometimes things like grace and forgiveness, they're so hard to apply to our lives. And I've learned that forgiveness can only be found at the point where you feel completely unforgivable, and that's where I want to start tonight. A while back I had a friend, we're still friends today, but back then our friendship was really starting to fade. And while I think that's a fact of life, what I didn't know is that while this was happening, she was going through a really tough personal time. And because we weren't really talking, I wasn't there for her, I wasn't able to help her. And a few months later, I got this email from her that just broke my heart, saying that she's in the hospital because she had attempted to take her own life. And that just racked up all these feelings of guilt, because what if I had been there? What if I had done something? What if I had just been a better and more caring person? And it really started to hurt me, because with guilt comes this awful nagging lie of shame. And shame says you can't tell anybody this, because if they do, they will judge you the same way that you judge yourself. And I believed those lies, and I just walked through my life for a couple months in this just awful time where, you know, my game face was my safe place. I couldn't tell people what was going on. And 3 months later, I remember sitting in my bed having this total pity party in front of God and saying, why me? Why this? And I felt his voice in my heart. He says, don't you get it yet? And I was so ready to understand what he wanted to teach me. He says, don't you get it yet? I was like, God, what? He says, you're forgiven. You're forgiven. And I stretched my arms out on that cross. I said, I love you this much, so that you don't have to live in guilt and in pain and in shame and in fear. And I have never felt so free as I have in that moment. And we all hit that point in our lives when we feel like we have hit below rock bottom. Some of you guys are even there tonight, and what I want to tell you is that God will travel any road to find you. He's going to travel that road of guilt and shame and hurt. That is his favorite place to go, because he knows that you'll be ready to find him there. Before I end, I just want to tell you one of my favorite Bible stories, John chapter 9. Jesus and his disciples, they're walking down the road, and they see a blind man. And his disciples look at him and they say, hey, Jesus, why is this guy blind? Is it because he sinned or because his parents sinned? And Jesus' answer is so simple. He says, neither. It wasn't him, it wasn't his parents, but this man is blind so that God's might and God's power and God's glory may be displayed in his life. And so often we ask that wrong question. We say, God, why me? Why here? Why this? Why now? I got school, I got work, I got so many things going on. But his answer is just to say, that's not the question. The question is, God, how are you going to show your glory in my life at the end of this? I just want to pray with you guys for a minute. God, just thank you for being here tonight. And thank you that you have brought each one of us to a point in our stories where we can stand here and stand together, God. And I just pray that tonight, no matter what happens, Lord, that you would show us your glory, because that's what this is all about. Amen.